The galaxy was dying one world at a time, and Elder Mora knew hers would be next. She stood in the control room of the underground shelter, her long fingers trembling as she activated the distress beacon one final time. Around her, screen showed the same terrible sight. 300 Scourge warships circling her planet like hungry predators. The metal behemoths blotted out the stars her people once navigated by, stars they would never see again. Elder Mora, young Kip said softly from his station. No one has answered in 47 days. Perhaps we should send it again, Mora interrupted, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. The Villani were a gentle species, evolved from grazing creatures on peaceful plains. They had reached the stars through curiosity and cooperation, not conquest. Now that same peaceful nature meant they had no weapons, no warriors, no hope. The Scourge had proven that kindness meant nothing in this universe. Light years away, aboard the Earth vessel Defiant Thunder, Captain John Ross studied the alien distress call with tired eyes. He had been in space for 32 years, fought in the colony wars, and seen humanity at its worst. The message played again, translated into rough English by the ship's computer. To anyone who can hear this, we are the Villani. We have no weapons. We have no defenses. The Scourge will destroy us in days. If there is mercy in this galaxy, please, help us. Sir, Tom said from the weapons station. The big Marine had scars running down his face from the Mars Rebellion. Command says we're the closest fleet, but intel shows 300 enemy ships. We have 37. Ross nodded slowly. What does the Galactic Council say? They recommend we stay back, Lisa answered from engineering. She was young, brilliant, and had designed half the modifications on their ships. They say the Villani are already lost. They say we shouldn't waste human lives on a species we barely know. They also say humans are crazy, Jake added from the pilot seat. He grinned, but his hands never left the controls. They call Earth a Deathworld. Say we evolved in hell. Ross allowed himself a small smile. The other species in the galaxy feared humans, and perhaps they were right to. Earth was a planet of extreme weather, deadly predators, and a gravity well that crushed most aliens. Humans had evolved to survive, to fight, to never surrender. They were persistence hunters who chased prey until it collapsed. They were pack animals who died for strangers. They were survivors of countless wars who knew the cost of doing nothing. Set course for Villani space, Ross ordered. Maximum speed. The fleet jumped to hyperspace, and 3 weeks later they emerged at the edge of a dying system. Elder Mora was watching the sky when Kip shouted, Elder, new contacts. Ships coming from the outer system. Her heart sank. More Scourge reinforcements. But then Kip's voice rose with something she had not heard in months. Hope. They're not Scourge design. The computer says, they're human. Mora's breath caught. Humans. The Deathworlders. She had heard stories, the species that came from a nightmare planet, the ones who frightened even the Galactic Council. But they had answered. They had actually answered. She opened a communication channel with shaking hands. Human ships, this is Elder Mora of the Villani. We are grateful beyond words that you came. But you must know there are 300 Scourge warships in orbit. You cannot possibly— Ma'am, a calm voice interrupted. The translator called him Captain Ross. We need tactical data on enemy positions. Can you provide that? Yes, but you don't understand. There are too many of them. Even your species cannot— Ma'am, I need you to take your people to the deepest shelters you have. Do it now. Mora felt ice in her blood. Captain Ross, what are you planning? There was a pause. Then, we didn't come here to run away. Send that data and get underground. The channel closed. Aboard the Defiant Thunder, Ross watched the Scourge fleet on his screens. 37 human ships against 300. The odds were terrible. His crew was silent, waiting. Tom, load all missile tubes. Lisa, divert everything to weapons and shields. Jake, plot us a course straight through their center line. Straight through, sir? Jake asked. Straight through. Let's show these bastards what happens when you pick on someone smaller than you. The human fleet surged forward, engines blazing like stars being born, and in the darkness of space the Scourge waited, not yet knowing they had made a fatal mistake. They had threatened someone humanity decided to protect. The first human missiles crossed the distance in seconds, streaking through space like falling stars in reverse. Warlord Drax watched from his command throne, amused by the tiny fleet's audacity. The Scourge had conquered 12 civilizations with overwhelming numbers and brutal efficiency. These humans would learn the same lesson as all the others. Resistance meant death. "Sir, incoming missiles detected," his weapons officer reported. "Should we activate shields?" Drax waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Let them waste their ammunition. Then we crush them." The missiles hit. The lead Scourge destroyer vanished in a flash of white fire. Then another. And another. In 10 seconds, 7 warships became expanding clouds of debris and superheated gas. Drax lunged forward in his seat, mandibles clicking in shock. "What was that?" "What kind of weapons?" "Nuclear warheads, sir," the officer stammered. "Enhanced fusion devices." "Yildiz, it's massive. They're using atomic weapons in space combat." Drax's blood ran cold. Every civilized species had banned such weapons centuries ago. They were too destructive, too indiscriminate, too horrifying. But these humans used them like conventional explosives. What kind of species weaponized the power of stars? "All ships, evasive action! Return fire!" The Scourge fleet scrambled to respond, but the human ships were already among them, moving with frightening speed and precision. They fought like nothing Drax had ever seen. No formations, no standard tactics. They attacked from multiple angles simultaneously, broke apart and reformed, targeted weak points with surgical accuracy. On the Defiant Thunder, Captain Ross gripped his chair as the ship shook from enemy fire. "Lisa, shield status." "Holding at 60%, she called back. "But we're taking heavy hits. These Scourge ships have serious firepower. Jake, get us under that carrier." "Tom, target their engine core." The ship dove beneath a massive Scourge vessel, so close that the hull scraped against the enemy's shields. Tom fired a full salvo of missiles at point-blank range. The carrier's engines exploded, sending the giant ship tumbling into 2 of its escorts. "That's 3 more." Tom grinned savagely. "How many left?" "Too many," Ross said. "But we're not here to win. We're here to buy time." Underground, Elder Mora watched in disbelief as the tactical display showed impossible things. The human fleet was outnumbered 8-1, yet they were holding. More than holding, they were winning. Scourge ships fell from orbit like burning rain, crashing into the ocean and turning the water to steam. "How are they doing this?" Kip whispered. "They're so few." "They're not fighting to survive," Mora said quietly. "They're fighting to kill." There's a difference, she was right. The Scourge fought for conquest and glory. They expected enemies to surrender when defeat became obvious. But humans fought with a desperate fury that made no sense to the Scourge mindset. When human ships took damage, they rammed enemy vessels. When their weapons ran dry, they used their ships as missiles. When retreat was logical, they attacked harder. They fought like cornered animals, and every animal from a Deathworld knew how to bite. Warlord Drax was no longer amused. His fleet had lost 47 ships in 30 minutes. 47! Against an enemy that should have been crushed in the opening salvo. His officers shouted conflicting reports. His bridge was chaos, and worst of all, he felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear. "All ships, focus fire on their command vessel," he ordered. "Kill their leader and they'll break." Every Scourge gun turned toward the Defiant Thunder. Energy beams and missiles converged on Ross's ship like an avalanche. The shields flared, buckled, and shattered. "Shields down," Lisa shouted. "Hull breaches on decks 4-7. We're venting atmosphere. Seal those sections," Ross ordered calmly. "Tom, do we have any nukes left?" 4, sir. But if we fire them this close to the planet, not at the fleet. At that moon." Ross pointed to a small rocky satellite orbiting nearby. "Maximum yield. Detonate on impact." Tom's eyes widened with understanding. "You crazy bastard. Do it." 4 missiles launched. They struck the moon simultaneously, and the ancient rock simply ceased to exist. The explosion was so massive that it looked like a second sun had been born. The shockwave expanded outward, a wall of superheated debris moving at thousands of miles per second. Scourge ships directly in the path were vaporized. Others tumbled wildly as the wave hit them, systems overloading, crews thrown against bulkheads. The perfect blockade formation shattered into chaos. On the Vellani homeworld, Kip stared at the screen in awe and terror. "They destroyed a moon," he said. "They destroyed an entire moon just to create a weapon." Elder Mora said nothing. She finally understood what the galaxy feared about humans. They didn't just come from a death world. They brought death with them.